All right. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate your time as we move into the last week of October. This has been Countdown to College, 24th Countdown to College application campaign that we have had here at CFNC. And while College Application Week is behind us, it was last week, we are still moving into providing more information on more topics, as we know that the Countdown to College does not end in October. So we appreciate you all being here. If you're looking for a little more information about Countdown to College, you can always visit cfnc.org/C2C. That is our official Countdown to College site, and we update it every year. So if we have families on that have juniors or younger, we'll have Countdown College Application Week again next year, and that's a week where a lot of our colleges waive their application fees, and then we also provide a way in which folks can organize volunteer efforts at their high schools. So we appreciate you all being here. Tonight's topic is paying for college. We've designed these student sessions to be shorter. We know that folks have been on webinars now for a while. But we like having these virtual options so that we can make sure we're reaching folks all across the state who are able to join us. And tonight we're going to talk about paying for college. We'll be on here for about 25-30 minutes. Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to share them in the chat or use the Q&A feature. Tonight is our last student session that we have this month. But make sure you keep an eye on cfnc.org/events. I'll put it in the chat as well, just to keep an eye on more programming we have throughout the year, making sure that we're providing you all with information on applying to college, paying for college, and residency as we go through the year. Tonight, we are lucky to have Patrick Whitfield here joining us. I had the pleasure of working with Pat for a while now. Pat has worked at both in the financial aid offices at both Cape Fear Community College and UNC-W. And he has a lot of great information to provide you with tonight. And his computer, as we all know, technology is fun, forced a restart on him about 10-15 minutes ago. So he's still getting all that stuff up. But I'm going to let him kick it off. And as we go through, like I said, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat and in the Q&A feature. We have folks here tonight to help you through it. We've got a couple folks in the background helping answer questions. Mr. Whitfield, how's it going with sharing your screen? You know what? I have your presentation and I will pull it up and I can share it if you want. How does that work?
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I'll let you introduce yourself a little more. And I have.
Okay.
Oh, and sorry, I want to add a little bit more about Mr. Whitfield. Mr. Whitfield has worked for 25 years in the private sector, okay, 15 years in education. So when I talked about Cape Fear Community College and UNC-W, and then also he has received his bachelor's degree in business administration from Mount Olive and has his associate's in science in accounting from Cape Fear Community College. So I just wanted to make sure I added that stuff in as we get all this great information from our expert tonight. And you can introduce yourself, anything more, and give me about 20 seconds and I'll have this pulled up and shared.
Okay. Thank you for the introduction, Ms. Query. I appreciate it. I've enjoyed our collaboration through the years. And this is the thing I've enjoyed the most that I've done the whole time I'm in education. I've really enjoyed helping folks pay for school because it's a big deal. It's a big deal. I apologize for the delay. I went through all of this 2 days ago, made sure it worked, got up this morning, made sure it worked. And then about 5 minutes before this thing kicked off, an update grabbed me and it wouldn't let me work until I ran it. So I'm playing catch up and I do apologize. That's on me. So April, if you could run this, can you run the slides, please? Thank you. And can everybody hear me okay? And we're going to be informal. I'm Pat. You can use the chat function to ask questions as we go. We're going to have time for Q&A after. I will stay here as long as y'all need me to get your questions answered. I'll also follow up with some contact information and make sure that we meet your needs this evening. Okay, that's what I want to do. I want to meet your needs. So here's what we're going to go through. There are two terms that are used interchangeably. cost of attendance and budget. They're going to mean the same thing. Every accredited school has to make this very available, easily found on their website. So you're going to know how much school is going to cost. And we're going to drill down into a little bit on that when we get to that question, how to pay for school. We're going to talk about a couple of myths about financial aid. Definitely got to talk about FAFSA, verification, less of an issue than it's been in the past. We're going to talk about that. Then we're going to get to the good stuff, types of aid, grants, loans, scholarships, work study. We're going to briefly touch on maintaining eligibility, how to stay out of issues, and then we'll be ready for questions. Okay. I picked on UNCW here because they were my last employer, but everyone is going to have a grid like this on their website and in their printed materials. Cost of attendance. And here's the first thing I want you to know. That $28,000 that you see at the bottom of the resident column for UNCW, that's not everything you got to pay. That's a budget. It's better to think of it that way. Okay, tuition and fees, there's that 7277. They've changed nomenclature here. It used to be room and board. Uncle Sam said, no, we're going to call it housing and meals and update the terminology. And that's what it costs at UNCW. If you go over to Cape Fear, there, the rest of this column is going to look very much like what you would see at Cape Fear. The only difference in UNCW's budget and Cape Fear's budget is there are no housing and meals at Cape Fear. There are no dorm rooms. There are no meal plans. So there's nothing there. And the tuition and fees will be less at Cape Fear. But the rest of those items, books and supplies, transportation, miscellaneous, all that's going to be about the same. One more item worth knowing about here. You'll see a health insurance line. At UNCW, health insurance is required. If you are covered under your own plan, and most state universities do this now. Chapel Hill, Duke, they require health insurance. If you're already covered, you can waive out of that so you don't have to pay this. Community colleges do not have this requirement. And there's a difference in philosophy. At universities, folks come from all over the world and all over the country to go to UNCW. Cape Fear is one of 58 community colleges. It's assumed that you're at home and you have your room, board, medical needs met at home. And so you won't see a health insurance charge in any of the community college grids. Okay. Here's the biggest one. This really applies now that the Department of Education has rewritten FAFSA. It doesn't hurt you to complete one. You're not giving up any information Uncle Sam doesn't already have. And the way the calculations work now, there are people that are higher up the income ladder that are going to qualify for Pell Grant under this new formula than was ever possible in any previous years. The term expected family contribution has gone away. Student aid index, SAI, is the new thing. And that's just an index number to let us know how much aid you're available for. It used to be if you had a student aid index of 10,000, you are not going to be eligible for any need-based aid. No longer true. I saw a handful of SAI shortly before I retired, $10,000, $15,000, $16,000 getting some Pell Grant. So worth your while to get FAFSA done. That's the thing I really want to encourage here. And they have made it easier. We're going to get into that as we talk about FAFSA. So let's dive into that. What's needed? This list has really been pared down from the pre-change. The change in FAFSA calculations, terminology, all the underlying mathematics happened last year. As we're filling this year's FAFSA out, we're going to be in year 2 of it. When I've done these presentations in the past, this screen filled up. Not so much now. Here's the first thing you can do if you haven't already done so, even if you're not ready to do your FAFSA yet. You can go ahead to studentaid.gov and set up a FSA, Federal Student Aid ID, one for the student and at least one parent in the household, maybe two, depending on the circumstances. And we'll get into that as we talk about FAFSA. But that's the first thing. Second thing, we're going to need parent or spouse contributor name, date of birth, social security number, email. Significantly simpler than it used to be. And income and asset information. That's it. Okay, that's it. And we're ready to go to the next one. Okay, studentaid.gov is the go-to for everything financial aid, federal financial aid now. The 2025 FAFSA had a limited opening the 1st of October. They plan to fully open it the 1st of December of this year. Some of y'all may recall this was quite interesting last year. They worked out a fair amount of bugs. They've improved it some and worked out others. And I kind of agree with this piece at a time, because if you drop it all out there at one time and there are errors in it, well, now you've got all those errors to clean up. So they're putting a limited amount out there. They're going to see, okay, did we fix all the problems? Are there problems we didn't foresee? They'll fix those, then they'll open it back up. So my recommendation to you is go ahead and set up your FSA ID. And I check into this about once every week, maybe two, see if it'll let you in and get the FAFSA done. Okay. One last thing while we're on this screen. Your financial aid professionals at your community colleges and universities, we do not have backdoor access to the federal database. It's none of our business until you make it our business via a completed FAFSA and listing our school. So we can't backdoor this. I will say the best help I found last year and this year, when you need help with your FSA ID or accessing FAFSA, when you go to studentaid.gov and click on a help center, a chat box opens up. They call it Aiden. Cute. Okay, that's cute. I'm seeing the question from Chase. Yes, please go ahead and set your FSA ID up, and let's talk about that a little bit. If you filed a joint income taxes with a spouse, most of the time just one of you needs to do it. If you've got a situation other than that, you're separated, divorced, something like that, it may be the case that they need both parents to complete one. And it'll never hurt you if you filed a joint return. It'll never hurt you if you did, if both of you complete one, but at least one in a married filing jointly situation. Thanks for the question. Okay, next, please. Okay, household information. Who will be in your household between July 1 of 2025 and 26? And right off the bat, I want to say here, you're probably not going to need this. This is more of a plan B situation, but I left the slide in so that we could have that discussion. The household's going to be the student, the student's parents, other children if they're receiving at least half their support from the parent, other folks living in the household who receive half of their support, like maybe you're supporting a grandparent or a parent sibling, something like that. Not boyfriends and girlfriends living in the house. But here's why this can not quite plan B, but trends that way. One of the big changes in the new FAFSA is this pulling dependent information off taxes. And it's living hard and cold with that. Whatever you filled out on your taxes, that's what the Department of Education is going to read when it's calculating your FAFSA. If your numbers haven't changed in the past couple of years, because remember, it's looking at taxes 2 years old, what's on your taxes ought to be accurate. You're going to have a situation where if your household situation has changed from what's on your taxes, you're probably going to want to reach out to the Department of Education and have that chat with them. And if you know which school you're going to, I'd go ahead and reach out to their financial aid office and say, hey, FAFSA says there are 5 dependents in the house and we actually have 4 or 6. Okay. So just keep that in mind, that it's coming strictly off tax records. And if your situation has changed, reach out to Department of Ed and then reach out to the school that you're going to and let them know so that adjustments can be made. Okay. I saw a question pop up about this. If you'll hang on to that to the end, we will get to it. And we're ready for the next one, please. Okay. And this is very much like the last slide, folks. Not quite plan B, but over in that direction, because again, it's driven off your tax records now. It used to be you were plugging this information in manually. Now it's coming off that. And again, last year, one of the bigger problems was they only kind of had FAFSA set up for joint tax return, children in household. It didn't do so well when you had a situation. Other than that, that's not very realistic. Everybody's got a situation. And they've done a pretty good job fixing that. It'll work better this year than it did last year. But this is something you just want to kind of keep in the back of your mind. If your situation is different now from what was on your taxes a year ago, you're probably going to want to reach out to your financial aid office once you know which school you're going to. And we can fix it. Okay, we can fix it. Okay, next, please. Okay, there you go. Common FAFSA errors. Do make sure when you're plugging in name, and this is particularly true in the FSA ID, take care to spell your names correctly, put the right date of birth, the right social security number. One of the bigger problems we have with FSA ID is there being a typo in that, and going back and fixing that with the feds, because again, the school officials can't fix this for you. It's a federal database. They're the ones that have to fix it. This is a good place to take your time, do some proofreading before you hit the submit button on this. But don't mismatch or plug in incorrect names, social security numbers, those kinds of things. And you're going to want to keep in the back of your mind is, was there any untaxed income? Those kinds of questions. Okay. Next, please. This is going to be less of a problem for those of you who've had students in class the past several years. Verification, we did very little of it with the brand new FAFSA last year, and that makes sense. It's downloading your tax information. There's very little room for error there. It cut the verification used to consume our life. I would say April through August every year for as long as I've been in financial aid. There's really nothing to it last year. So I think this, and they designed it this way. They knew verification was a problem. They wanted it to go away. They've done a pretty decent job addressing it. What verification was in the past was somewhere there was a mismatch between your W-2 and what was in FAFSA. There was a mismatch between tax records or information given what was in your FAFSA. Now that they've removed a lot of human element in FAFSA. I mean, it's downloading your information, and you'll be given that one of the questions that's going to ask you when you jump into your FAFSA is, do you give the Department of Education permission to download your tax information? And if you don't, they won't calculate a student aid index for you, and life gets more complicated. So they've taken humans out from behind. They've taken the steering wheel out of our hand. And it's just very much a database driven operation. And there's good news and bad news. We can sit here and have a conversation about what's good and bad about that. But one of the good things is verification very much minimized. Okay. If you do get tagged for it, we're going to let you know early on which documents we're looking for. Most of the documents, schools have them listed on their website, where you can either print them up and turn them in or submit them electronically. I've done both of those. So It won't come as a surprise, but once you've selected a school, and let's pick on Cape Fear. I love those guys to death. I'll use them for my examples this evening. If you've been selected for verification, in your campus email, the financial aid department at Cape Fear, Rachel and Nikki are going to reach out to you and let you know, hey, we need this document. They'll tell you exactly what it is, where it is, how to submit it. It won't be a surprise, and you'll know it plenty soon enough that if you act in a timely manner, we'll be able to calculate your aid. Okay, next, please. Now we get to the fun stuff. 4 types of aid I mentioned previously, grants, loans, scholarships, and work study. Let's dive right into that, please. Okay, let's put a pin in the federal Pell Grant amount. $73.95 is the last reported number that was active for the 23-24 school year. They're not letting us know what 24-25, I'm sorry, for 25-26. I just looked at this 2 days ago, still not out there. They're saying it's going to go up, but folks, this is always a political football up in Washington. There's a proposal out there to increase it up to $10,000, which I'll be the first to tell you folks, Pell Grant has not kept up with inflation in any time frame you care to look at, the past 5 years, the past 40 years. Okay, nowhere near. And even if they did jump it up to 10,000, still hadn't kept up with inflation. Having said that, I said there's a proposal for 10,000. I'd bet good folding money it won't get jumped up that much. If they get it to 8,000, it would actually surprise me, but that's just based on my experience in the past. So as soon as we know, you will know, that's the last reported number. It's not what it's going to be. It'll be a little bit more than that. How much? Hesitate to say. The federal supplemental grant, teach grant, all of those things, that I don't see those changing any in my research. And there's nothing special extra you have to do, folks. Just complete your FAFSA. Let's talk a little bit about state grants. This has been kicked around a lot in Raleigh. They're now calling it a North Carolina scholarship. It's limited funds, which means it doesn't, Pell Grant we can't run out of. Uncle Sam can print money. State of North Carolina cannot. The legislature puts X dollars in the account, and when it's gone, it's gone. But here's a couple of things you can know. You need to be a North Carolina resident. Your student aid index that's produced by your FAFSA needs to be less than 7,500. Your adjusted gross income on your taxes needs to be less than 80,000. You need to be enrolled at least half-time and attending one of the 16 UNC system universities or community colleges. Okay. So that's the free money. And again, all you got to do is complete FAFSA to do it. Let's talk about a subject near and dear to my heart. I like scholarships. I managed scholarships at Cape Fear for a number of years. It was a great job. Really like helping folks in need able to pay for their school. First place you want to look at, CFNC. They are the go-to touchstone for everything in North Carolina. They have oodles of scholarships. I do want to run a little side venture right here. There are a fair amount of programs, particularly in allied health, and the list changes from one year to the next. I've watched it grow, that list grow quite a bit over the past 15 years. There's a thing in there called FAILS. We're going to talk about that when we get to loans, but I just want, while we're looking at CFNC, you certainly want to look, in addition to the North Carolina scholarships, other scholarships are on offer there. Keep in the back of your head, we're going to talk about FAILS in every college and university goes out into their communities. They raise money from donors. They make that money available to students via scholarships. You definitely want to be, if you're going to Cape Fear, they've got a scholarship application. If you're going to UNC-W, Chapel Hill, Duke, they have a scholarship application. Everybody's rules are different. Their calendar is different. When I was at Cape Fear, our scholarship application was open year round because we had students starting every semester. At UNC-W, their window for next year's scholarship application will open up the 1st of December. It will close the end of March. So all available on the website. You want to start jumping in now and planning your plan of attack. National and local organizations, your high school, I've been to a bunch of our local high schools and most of them do a fine job with scholarship opportunities. So be talking to your high school counselor. Any organizations, a lot of times if you're working for a major company or your parents working for a major company, they may offer some assistance. So you want to have mom and dad have a chat with their employer, see if anything is available there. Okay. So those are good sources of scholarships. Okay. Scholarships tend to break out in two different areas. Merit-based, academic is based on your grades, talents, leadership abilities, whatever the donors are looking for in the scholarship money that they give. But they put that down in writing and we have to follow that intent. Need-based, and again, here's one more reason you really want to complete your FAFSA. You can demonstrate need with FAFSA. That's a government approved number. I can say, okay, Susie and Frankie demonstrate need. Here's their SAI. Boom, we're done. If you haven't done a FAFSA, you can explain your need in the essay section of a scholarship, which is going to be easier for people processing that. I got a government approved number or I've got to read through an essay and figure it out. So do yourself a favor and get that done. Got a couple of scholarship engines that we recommend, Chegg, CFNC, and FastWeb. And really, it's not too early as a high school junior to start looking at this. And if you're a senior, I would be deep inside my scholarship search right now. And I'm going to give you a pro tip on how to do that, because when you talk to anybody about scholarships, everybody's like, have I got to write an essay? You do. But a smart thing for you to do is when you're searching through the search engines for scholarships, why wouldn't you look for scholarships whose essay ask is similar? So that one essay with some light edits can make 10 applications happy. Let's work smarter, not harder. So your research ahead of time can save you a lot of work on the back end. Okay, next, please. All right. We're going to talk about the federal direct loans, and then we're going to circle back around to fails when we're done with this. If you demonstrate need with your FAFSA, you are eligible for a subsidized loan. The subsidized loans, interest does not accrue so long as you are in halftime attendance every fall and spring. Interest will not start accruing until you leave school. For the school year 24-25, they bumped the interest rate up to 6.53. It was 5.5 last year, so about a percentage point. The interest rate for an unsubsidized loan is the same, 6.53. The difference is it's the part of that budget that is non-need based, and that interest does accrue while you're in school. Now, if a student demonstrates, has room, they demonstrate need and they have their room in the budget, schools are going to offer both. Okay. And you want to accept the subsidized loans before you accept any unsubsidized. At UNCW, we wrote the rubrics behind the scene that wouldn't let you accept an unsubsidized loan until you accepted subsidized, because it's just a better deal for you. Okay, let's look at how that breaks out over a 4-year career in school. Next slide, please. Your first year as an undergraduate, 0 to 30 credit hours, you're entitled to $3,500 of subsidized, $2,000 of unsubsidized, $5,500 per year, $6,500 per year as a sophomore, and that does go by credit hours. If you're not up to 30 credit hours, you're still a freshman. Okay, third and fourth years, you're entitled to $7,500 per year. If you don't demonstrate need, then we just make up the difference by offering you an unsubsidized loan. That's a good question. I'll grab that one right quick. The interest rate is on a year by, it changes every year. And so whatever you sign up for and accept the school year you're in, that's what the interest rate's going to be for that term. So like last year, the interest rate was 5.5. We're already seeing it 6.5 for next year. Anybody that's a sophomore this year that signed up last year for loans, they're going to pay 5.5% on that loan for last year. If they sign up for loans this year, they're going to pay 6.5 on this year's loan. Good question. Next, please. Parent Plus loan. If so the student direct loans, they're limited. You saw 5,500 through 7,500. If that's not covering the basis of paying everything you need it to, and that tends to happen more with our out-of-state students. I do see it from time to time with in-state students. You can get a Parent Plus loan. This is in the parent's name. There is a credit check involved. And if you're denied a Parent Plus loan because the credit check didn't go through for you, there's some things the school can do. We can increase the student unsubsidized loan based on that. So at this point, when you're in Parent Plus territory, you want to be talking to your school. That'd be a smart thing to do, is be talking to your school. But there is a credit check. You apply online at studentaid.gov. The interest rate jumped up on this too. It's up to 9.08%. And you'll be locked into that. Two more things about the loans. Student loans that we have discussed, there's no credit check. They are considered an entitlement. Students going to be offered those. Parent Plus loans, there is a credit check, and you can't later transfer this loan to your student. I get asked that question quite a bit. Now, can the student pay it off? Sure. Can you legally transfer a Parent Plus loan to your student? Nope, it's going to stay with you. Okay, next, please. Private loans. These are competitive now. This is on most every school's website. There is an outfit called Elm Select, www.elmselect.com. They are the front of the house. They administer for like Sallie Mae, Wells Fargo, Discover, those guys. And you're going to want to ask me, why a private loan when we've got the student loans and the plus? Well, you can see that plus loan interest, that's pretty high, 9%. If you've got an existing relationship with, say, Discover, you may be able to get as good or better a deal with them. And they're in the student loan business. We're not talking about walking down to the credit union and floating a private loan. These are the big guys that have student loans as part of their portfolio. A student loan has Elm Select has a lovely comparison tool once you click into it, where you can shop and see. And really, I'd make this part of my search. If you're like, yeah, we're going to have to do some private loans, I'd go to studentaid.gov, have my look at Parent Plus loans. But before I pull the trigger on that, I think I'd have a look at private loans and at least have a look at Sallie Mae, so that you've got a baseline to compare loans with. Okay. Work study, one of the things I like a lot. If you're going to work anyway, I'd consider work study for the simple reason, first of all, you're on campus. You don't have to drive to the job. Second of all, your employer understands that you are a student and they'll work with you on your schedule. Third, let's say you want to be a marine biologist, okay, and you're at UNCW. How cool would it be to land a work study job in the marine biology department, get to see how it works, get to talk to the folks that are hiring and firing in the field, that kind of thing. So you're going to work a job anyway. And every accredited school offers work study, okay, all of them. Okay, next, please. This one's quick and easy. Satisfactory academic progress. Let's call it SAP, so that I don't have to do the mouthful every time. This is how you maintain eligibility for the federal grants, the federal loans, the private loans. Most of the private loans have a SAP policy. Okay, who's on mute? I see from Antonio. Can y'all still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. I think, I don't know if our attendees realize they're still muted. So if anyone has questions that they want to ask verbally, you're welcome to do that in a few minutes after Mr. Whitfield has his formal part finished. Otherwise, feel free to continue sending them in the chat. You can continue,
you.
Mr. Whitfield. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We're coming to the end. And like I said, I'll be here as long as you need me to answer your questions. That's not going to be a problem. So let's wrap this up. SAP maintains eligibility for basically all of your aid. Everybody understands you got to maintain a 2.0 GPA. You've got to complete 67% of your classes successfully. And here's an easy way to think about that. Your first semester, you register for 5 3-hour classes and you withdraw from 2 of them. But you can still have a 4.0 GPA. Your second semester, same thing. Register for 5 3-hour classes, withdraw from 2 of them. You can still have a 4.0 GPA, but your completion rate's only 60%. There can come a point you'll get a warning the first time you're not making satisfactory academic progress. Say, hey, we're going to give you 1 semester to straighten it out. And at the end of that semester, if you're still not making SAP, we have to cancel your financial aid. Now, there's an appeal process, and if there's any reasonable reason, schools will generally reinstate your aid for 1 trial semester. Easier to stay out of that situation, particularly for freshman students in their first semester, folks, it's not high school. It's a lot busier. There's a lot more work involved. Please don't try to take calculus, physics, Spanish, all in 1 semester. Work with your academic advisor and put a little distance in between the more difficult classes so you got time to put into it. And schools frown at me when I say this, but I'm retired. What can they do to me? No, this is good advice. If you've got outside responsibilities, a lot of students have to work. It's not an option. They've got to put a roof over their head, food in their mouth. They got to have a job. They may be working full-time or pretty close to it. A full-time job and full-time school, that's rough, folks. And I'm not saying it can't be done. I've done it myself, but it is rough. Maybe going to school part-time. If you've got those kind of responsibilities bearing down on you, think about what you can manage. And look, and wasn't all that long ago, Pell Grant was not a thing in the summertime. Now it is. So if you have to go to school part-time fall and spring, you can use up the rest of that year's Pell eligibility in the summertime to help stay caught up. This is a good place. If you're in that situation, if you're providing care for someone, holding down a job, got a medical situation, this is a good place for you to have a chat with 2 folks. The 2 folks that are going to be your best friends at school is your academic advisor and your financial aid advisor. You can email them, Zoom them, drop by and see them. At every school I've ever worked at, you don't have to make an appointment to stop in and see your financial aid advisor. Just show up. It'd be nice for me to know that you're coming, but you can stop by. But this is the time you want to ask questions. And let us just help get you to where you're going to be successful. That's what I want. If it takes you 5 years to complete an education, so what? By the time you're 30 years old, nobody's going to care. But it's easier to be successful from the get-go than skin your knees and have to make up lost ground. Okay, next, please. Last slide, last important one. One of the things you're going to run into as soon as your kid registers for classes, their information belongs to them, not the parent. Doesn't matter if they stay with you, doesn't matter if you're paying the bills. This is Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act by the Department of Education. They're quite strict about it. We can get our knuckles rapped pretty hard when we don't go by FERPA. Now, your student can sign a waiver. Each school does it different. Cape Fear certainly does it differently than UNCW does. Fine. There's a hoop to jump through. Your student can do it. And then we can disclose information to the parent. Done it my share of times and happy to do it. But I've had to explain to more than one parent until your student completes FERPA waiver, can't help you much. That's an unhappy conversation for the parent and for me. So you know about it now. Jump on out there and make sure your student gets it done. April, I think we've hit the end and I'm ready for questions. You can chat them or you can unmute and ask them. I'm not fussy.
Awesome. Okay, so we've got we've got a couple people that have raised their hands. I want to unmute just those folks. If anyone else wants to ask questions, actually we've got one person now. So if anyone else wants to ask questions verbally, just raise your hand. But before I do that, first we've got a question in chat about there's someone who has a house of four, so four people. There's a 20-year-old son, not 24, 20-year-old son who's employed full-time. They don't claim them on their taxes, but they do provide all basic living needs. So like, shelter, food, lights, water. Do they claim him on FAFSA as four? So I guess they're wondering about, I'm gonna bet they're wondering about dependency status and then also number in the household.
Right. So he's not showing up on your taxes, so he wouldn't show up in a FAFSA calculation, but it would be to your benefit for them to be calculated, because if he's living with you, you're providing room and board, that's going to be 50% of, support. I'd certainly call that to my school's attention. Let's assume your student's going to attend Cape Fear UNCW. I'm picking on them because they're local and I work with them. As soon as as long as you're still figuring out which school you're going to, I wouldn't worry about this. As soon as your student signs up for Cape Fear, UNCW, whichever school it's going to be, I'd be reaching out to their financial aid office and posing that question. Absolutely. They can make the adjustments.
And are you talking about, Pat, you want to be clarify were you talking about the number in household, but the student will still be dependent? You're saying, right? Still be dependent on the FAFSA. But sorry, thank you. Can you clarify? They'll still be dependent on the FAFSA, is that right?
April, I can see the chat. I've clicked into that. So cool. So we're starting. Jason, did I answer your question okay?
I think you might have. Yep.
Okay, so let's move down to William. You
Okay.
mentioned that only one parent can file. If you file joint taxes, you're probably only going to need one parent to complete a FSA ID, because they can provide that information, because it's going to ask your student first. The FAFSA is provide your information. And then it's going to say, okay, give us your parent's email address. And we're going to go to them and ask that parent to provide. Well, both parents signed a joint return, so they should be able to provide it, and that should solve the problem. Having said that, if both of you want to complete a FSA ID, it will not hurt anything.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, good questions. What else do you have?
Absolutely. And I've got two people that I allowed to unmute over in the participants panel. So if you guys have questions, feel free. Otherwise, you can raise your hand. All right, I'm gonna unmute someone else. Actually,
Okay.
here, I'm gonna unmute first and see if they want to, because I saw that pop up first. If you want to ask a question, and then we can come back. I know there's more in the chat.
Okay, I see the question in the chat. I'll take that on, and then if somebody wants to unmute when we're finished with this one. Okay.
Perfect.
So if you've got a college savings account, will that affect the actual parent's ability, grandparent? That question, that situation has moved a time or two since they've recalculated FAFSA. My suggestion, Mary, would be when your student knows which school they're landing in, reach out to them and let them know that. I would think it shouldn't, because it's a grandparent CFNC account that will run directly through the business office. I suspect it's not going to affect because it's not landing in their adjusted gross income, the parent adjusted gross income. It's not any part of that. It may show up somewhere else on the FAFSA, but I would pose that query to your institution once you know where your student's going. Okay.
So I'll share my question. It says Chase, but I'm actually Chase's mom.
Okay.
Um, so I've been divorced for 17 years. And my son, I have physical custody of my son. He's 18 now, so I guess it doesn't matter. However, I've claimed him on my taxes every year.
Mhm.
So do I still need his father's financial income? Because I'm not sure that we're going to be able to get that. But I have claimed him on my taxes every year since he was born. So I have proof of that. So would you
Ms.
need
Bo-
my
Ms.
information?
I don't think so. I'm going to get into your business just a little bit. I'm assuming you're filing a head of household tax. Would that be correct?
I'm actually remarried and have been remarried
Ah.
for like 11 years. So we file, myself and his stepfather file jointly.
Okay. So actually, that's the tax records that's going to drive this.
Okay.
Biological father plays no role in this FAFSA. Stepfather and you are filing a joint return, and this thing, Ms. Boland, now is very tax driven. But I mean, the answer I'm giving you, this has always been the case. They're going to look at your joint return.
Okay, perfect. That's what I wanted to make sure because I have all of that information. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. You're welcome. Good questions, folks. Keep them coming.
And as I see those hands raised, I'm allowing you to unmute, so feel free to pop out. I've got one or two more that I have given permission to talk here.
Hi. So my question is, my student, she did her FAFSA ID and completed it. Okay, and then I started to do mine. Okay, she used my email, not for her account, but when it asked for the parent email, she used the email that I use frequently.
Mhm.
When I ready to start doing my FAFSA ID, I used that same email to try and create my account, but it wouldn't allow me to. So I called the FAFSA folks and they said they couldn't recover it. For whatever reason, that email would not work. So I had to create a new email account to get my FAFSA ID. Would that affect anything?
So long as you've got a active FSA ID now with the new email and it's running and working, you'll be fine.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome. William, I'm looking at your question in the chat. Let's go ahead and answer that. I would encourage you to complete FAFSA for a handful of reasons. I mean, if you know even if you plan right now for certain sure that you're just going to pay for tuition out of pocket, pay for the cost out of pocket, stuff can change. And having a completed FSA ID and a completed FAFSA opens the door, first of all, for your students' direct loans. And you don't have to accept them. Schools are going to offer those to you, and it's up to you whether you accept them or not. And here's the thing I wish was better known. Even if you decline the student loans at the beginning of the year, and you get halfway through the year and something changes, schools can open them back up. They don't disappear. We just get them out of sight so we don't have to work around them, but we can always bring them back. So that FAFSA opens the door for student loans, can help with scholarships. The merit-based scholarships opens the door for Parent Plus loans and can help with the private loans. So even if you're planning on paying out of pocket, I think I'd probably spend the 20 or 30 minutes it takes to get it done just to have that tool in your back pocket. Okay. And I want to throw out one more thing. I see we've still got most of our folks with us. I talked a little bit about FELS. What those are forgivable loans. If you want to be a nurse and you get approved for a FELS loan, it is a loan, considered a loan. But once you graduate, if you practice in the state of North Carolina as a nurse for 1 year full time, they forgive 1 year of the loan. That's a good way. And those FELS loans are out there for physician's assistants, doctors, sonographers, radiographers, keep some teaching positions. I'd hate myself if I didn't mention FELS to y'all. If you're of little means or moderate means and you want to do something like that, FAILS is a lovely tool. Now, having said that, you want to make sure you graduate in that program and practice in the state the amount of time they ask for, because otherwise it converts to a loan and the interest rate on it's higher than the federal loans. But it is a good tool for folks of modest means. Okay, these are good questions, people. Anything else I can help you with?
They are great questions, guys. And I've tried to put a couple things in the chat where I could too. A link to the FELS information that Mr. Whitfield mentioned. It's another great opportunity. And then the FAFSA will open December 1st this year. Pay attention to next year though, because it typically opens earlier than December, but it's been a wonky couple of years, but December 1st this year.
Alexis, I see your question. Would FAILS apply to the vet program? Doesn't. Thanks, April. I was not sure.
No.
Okay.
No vet program. They're specifically like high need careers. And I'm gonna unmute. Oh, you're already unmuted, Mr. Parker.
Courtney, I'm looking for your question in the chat, but if you want to either post it again or unmute and pose it, that's fine.
And as we are looking at the last of these questions, I'm going to go ahead and end the official recording, but we're still here. Thank you.
Okay.